As we know, Fat Joe is beefing with the FBA. I think that, you know, for you to be a legendary rapper in the game, to say something like, you know, the things he's been saying, he's basically a revisionist historian. He's revising history by going down this route to basically say that it was 50-50 between Black Americans and Latinos. He even threw Jamaicans in there. He's like Black Americans and Caribbeans. From what I know, I'm saying, and I've been seeing it with so many videos, you got a lot of OGs from the hip hop days that are pointing out that, you know, hip hop was started by Black Americans. And many of them that early in the days that were seeing it start in the Bronx, it was starting from young. They weren't, you know, teenagers even then. They were like young. And I think as far as you go back with that, when you think about it with hip hop, I definitely think, as much as we all talk about, oh, the 70s is where, you know, the birth of hip hop and everything. I think if you ask me, I think it goes back into the 60s. It could have very well been in the 60s. You had a lot of youngsters that were, you know, playing, hearing different songs, some of their favorite songs, and probably playing the records that their parents were playing and stuff, and then maybe doing their little rap thing to it. And that's what kind of started it. And you even got some people saying, oh, it started down south and then it made its way up to the East Coast, to the Bronx. I don't know how true that is. I'm not really negating all of that because, like I said, you know, there's a few videos I think out there, or maybe a couple videos I should say, where you see stars rapping or doing something of a rap style thing, and they were doing that. I think the video was really old. I'm gonna look for it and see if I find it, but it's a really old video and it looks like it's from like the 1950s or something. So rap had its way. It had a long process until it eventually started blowing up towards the late 70s and then going into the 80s. But anyway, Fat Joe, I feel like I'm disappointed in him to you know, even go down that route. I feel it would have been more respectful if he said something to the effect of, you know, old Latinos helped jump on board when hip hop became mainstream and added their flavor to the whole hip hop scene. Maybe something like that, opposed to saying it was 50-50. I don't really know where he got that from. Like I said, I think at this point, he's trying to be a revisionist historian. And anyway, when you look at it, I think that with his album, The World Changed on Me, being released in December 18th, I believe, he did an interview, I think around that time, with Math Hoffa, where he's talking about FBA, these broke ninjas. And I guess basically by saying that is to say that you're mad because what you created eventually was taken and other people made money off of it and it became $1 billion industry. And I think that's incredibly disrespectful and a cruel thing to say, especially considering if you know the history, the Black American history in America, you would understand that for a lot of the FBA, there were so many accounts, so many situations where the FBA were on their way to making great progress, being, you know, wealthy, having a great economy for specifically the Black community, that Black people would be in a whole different tax bracket as a mass, as we're seeing today, not individually, but as a mass. So I think it's very, very disrespectful on Fat Joe's end to kind of throw that out there, because as we know, so many horrible events that, you know, kept bringing, you know, Black people back to square one, and, you know, bringing Black people down has been the problem. One of those instances being, of course, Black Wall Street. If you know, in 2021, that made like 100 years since Black Wall Street was burned down. And just think that back in 1921, prior to it being burned down, it was a huge economy of greatness. You know, Black banks, hotels, barbershops, restaurants, all of that stuff. And, you know, this was at a time, of course, when, you know, segregation was incredibly in effect. So Black people had to rely on their own businesses. They had to open their own businesses. You know what I'm saying? There was black restaurants, black this, black that, black whatever you want to call it. And I think that that was such a beautiful thing to see, to read about and to you know, learn about it, because that was black greatness and that wealth, and it was taken from black people. And there was so many other accounts where that has happened. So back to the situation with Fat Joe, it's a very disrespectful thing to go down that route and say something like that. And even, you know, John Leguizamo had even got into it at some point. He said this, I think a couple of years ago. He was throwing out that Latinos had built America and built hip hop. Now, I feel many groups have come to America and have included their wonderful greatness and, you know, brought their wonderful talents and whatever it is, their labor to help build America. That is true. But you can't really deny FBA. That I will not really understand when people try to, I guess maybe they're not trying to do that. They're just trying to highlight their culture. That's cool and all, but you know, always remember FBA's work, especially in the music industry, because as we know, it wasn't just hip hop. As we're seeing, hip hop is trying to be, you know, people are trying to take hip hop away and rewrite history with hip hop. It was done with country.
Please like this video if you enjoyed this content and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.